like, dude, like Roy Anderson, like this is all like, you know, just kind of looking at like the surface influences and the cinematography and everything. But you know, I think I've never really gone deep with you and really asked like where this sort of came from. Do you want to talk about like the initial inspirations and influences, like the development of this film?
Yeah, sure. I would say immediately first influences that come to mind are things that just always stuck with me since I was young. So I really like Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland. I don't know if anybody's seen that here. And I just like the idea of films that kind of suck you through a portal with slippery realities that you can't really get a grasp of because they're constantly changing. I'm just very interested in the idea of kind of multiple planes of reality speaking to each other at the same time. I really like Spawn. That's another thing in which you get sucked through a portal. So those are sort of young things that initially influenced me to do this stuff in general. For this particular film, things that stuck out to me were, there's a whole kind of subgenre that's not really well explored of low-budget films from the 60s and 70s that are psychodramas, and they're campy B-movie psychodramas, but they're using the concept and the kind of formal experimentation to elevate what it's doing. So examples of that would be like Seconds by John Frankenheimer,
Of course.
Eyes Without a Face, Footprints on the Moon by Luigi Bozzoni, The Swimmer is a big influence on this.
Classic.
Vertigo is a good example, and all of these films also deal with memory and identity and sort of fragmented identities and not being able to deal with realities and this kind of constructing a parallel reality.
Something that I notice in especially Seconds and The Swimmer is perspective. And we were talking on the phone yesterday to prep for this Q&A here because we want to make sure that we're touching every single like one of the bases that I know you're wanting to touch here. And
I don't like that you told him that, because now if the Q&A sucks, that's really bad.
Oh, dude, it's okay. We were brainstorming. It was a brainstorm session for this thing.
It was a quick conversation.
It was a
guys.
quick
Anyway,
little combo.
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay, sorry. All right. But one thing that came up, you know, is the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Twilight Zone, and I was thinking about the idea of Rod Serling introducing all those episodes, and he says, these people are going into the Twilight Zone, and how this film is sort of Serling-esque in the way that this is from this woman's perspective in her own Twilight Zone, right? Every episode of that show is about someone's life being changed, the world around them being reshaped in a nightmarish way, and this film is sort of about that. That's just an observation that I noticed, but I know that's
it's a good observation, and I think that was even like a framework that I looked at from the beginning. It was almost as if everything that I was watching at that time, I was seeing through the lens of how would you do this through the vessel of the Twilight Zone. And one thing I'll say about the Twilight Zone is that there's certain things about it I don't like. I really hate things where it reveals to you that the guy was actually a robot. Like, that's something that drives me crazy. And that the Twilight Zone does that sort of stuff. But whenever it deals with more psychological territory, a good example, a big one was the mirror image. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that episode where the woman's at the bus stop and she sees a doppelganger of herself. But those were definitely big influences on me. The Twilight Zone is one of the earliest things that kind of introduces the idea of parallel realities and all sorts of things that Congratulations Debby deals with, yeah.
Yeah, and another huge factor in this film is the noise, the droning of this thing. Rewatching it, you know, I had, I wouldn't call it a migraine in a negative sense, but I definitely call it a migraine in a constructive sense, and informs so much about the thematic, stuff in the movie. Theme, it's all a tone, it's all in the sound. And the score, I gotta say, was incredible. Who was the score?
That's Haley Forrest. She's in a project called Circuit Does You. She's on Thrill Jockey, Matador Records, Drag City, and she's done really well for herself. But she definitely comes from the drone world, specifically.
Drone, yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just.
Oh yeah, like that. I mean, that stuff is super formative for me. I grew up, 15 years old, super interested in things like Sonic Youth and Godspeed You Black Emperor. Like I'm sure a lot of people that are just kind of hipster pieces of shit liked back then. And like those things, led me down the pathway of the Dead Sea and Harry Pussy, and then eventually just straight up noise like MSBR, CCCC, Richard Ramirez, Grunt, Tane, all of that stuff. And that left a big impact on me. I was talking before about the idea of liking films that kind of feel like you're getting sucked through a portal. And I remember just being at noise shows when I was 19, 20 years old and thinking about them from a cinematic sense. The idea of traditional forms being deconstructed into pure chaos was something that was super interesting to me, and I wanted to see that. It felt fitting for a film that deals with distorted realities and somebody distorting the truth. So it had a big influence on me. I mean, I chose Haley because I knew that she was operating simultaneously in sort of cinematic, not post-rock, but it had a kind of movie score type territory going on, but also came from the drone and noise world, so it seemed like a good fit. A lot of that stuff in the last section of the film is actually chopped up, hyper distorted stuff from the earlier sections of the film that me and my sound designer did, Russell, who now is like really taken off, and I could never afford his work. He's doing stuff for like Stephen King movies and all sorts of stuff, but yeah.
Dude, another thing that I noticed, I've seen this, I think this is my 4th or 5th time watching this film. I'm a huge, huge fan of this, and I wanted to say something I noticed. I noticed the usage of the term photographic memory.
Yeah.
And especially her continuous saying photographic memory, right? It's sort of interesting contrasting that with how barren that scrapbook is when she's flipping through it.
Yeah.
And how almost happenstance all those photos are, and they're very they're not really depicting anything. It's a girl with a bike. It's a birthday party. Everyone's sort of plainly looking into the camera. There's no specific memories in there. They're all photographic. They're all capturing a moment rather than experiencing the sort of multi-layered reality that is memory, right? Like you can think about subjective and objective memory, and I really appreciated the subtlety in her sort of saying that, because it is sort of what the movie is about. Is someone with a photographic memory that is only photographic and nothing beyond that. It's all surface layer. She doesn't have any nuance or subtlety in the way that she recollects how she raised her children or anything, and that's ultimately what leads to her sort of alienation from her family.
Absolutely.
And that's brilliant. That's fucking brilliant.
Thank you, and also obviously somebody who has a photographic memory who seemingly can't remember the things that she did wrong.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I wanted to kind of touch on, how much time do we have, Bobby?
Let's do one more question and then one audience question.
For sure. I wanted to touch on what's you got going on now. I mean, it's been a few years since this came out. What's cooking?
Yeah, it's funny because I was worried about even doing this Q&A because my head's just not in the space of thinking about this film as much, And I was worried about stuttering on questions, but I've been working on a new film called Gummy Butterflies. It's like a homicide detective serial killer movie in the vein of like a Seven or Silence of the Lambs or Manhunter or The Boston Strangler, only it also kind of feels like a Marvel movie. And then also, I think I'm going to be doing it primarily on like green screen and rear projection, so it also might be really bad. Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of fucking time on it. I went to New York. I spent months interviewing a homicide detective who was retired, got a lot of information, sort of texture to deal with. I've been working with a lot of different people and sort of assembling what I think will be a super innovative team, and I've been consulting with a roller coaster designer from Disney, a Disney Imagineer, I have a good feeling about that film, but there's a little bit more work that has to be done.
I mean, being someone that has read the script and has followed the development of this film, Roger, this film is going to be unlike anything that I've ever seen. Absolutely. And I mean, you are a visionary. This film is visionary. And I got to say, I mean, as your friend of, I guess, oh my God, it's been like, what, 4 years?
4 years.
Almost 4 fucking years, man. Like, it is incredible knowing you and just, having this relationship that we have and doing this has been like, this is incredible. And, thank you for, making this happen. I love talking about this film and I love you, bro.
Absolutely, I love you too. And thank you for everything you're doing, Creston. Creston's gone on to do some of the most incredible film programming and film promotion that I've really ever seen. In fact, there was a time when I was coming up through internet forums and stuff as a kid learning about films that way, and I thought what you were doing was completely unimaginable. So.
Oh man, I mean, thank you so much. And honestly, thank all of you. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming out. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we have time for an audience question. We have one, maybe, can we do two? One? Do one? Come on. Okay, one, and don't do that thing where you're like, it's actually 2 questions, but just do one question. All right, anyone? Oh, come on, one question. It's your chance. Any questions? Okay, yeah, you right there, sir. Yeah, what's up?
I guess, was there any specific meaning behind the different appliances that they would see on the commercials, or if you could choose one appliance that would best represent their family, what would it be?
I don't even know how to answer that, dude. That's the weirdest question that anyone's asked about the film. Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna break the rules. Yes, you, ma'am. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm curious. Does Debbie have her baby?
I never saw that baby necessarily as being like a tangible thing that exists or not, you know. I don't know. It doesn't represent, it represents something other than a physical baby. Something tells me she didn't have the baby, no.
And sir, yes, you?
Did you like talk to people who maybe had narcissistic personality disorder or like were victims of abuse or something like that to inform her character?
Yeah, 100%, especially the latter.
Gotcha.
Hell yeah, guys.
Awesome. That's good. Thank you guys for coming out.
Let's hear it one more time for Roger and Creston, and for Congratulations Debby.